Okay.
Good. Thumbs up, everybody. Everybody, thank you. Awesome.
All right, here we go.
All right.
Thumbs up. Perfect. Got it. All right. Howdy, everyone. I'm Shelly Brinkman. This is my first Zoom class, so excuse me if I'm got a little bit of delay in my audio. I'll take pauses. I'm a co-founder of Startup Aggieland with several faculty members at Texas A&M University from Mays Business School and from the College of Architecture, as well as the College of Liberal Arts and the College of Engineering. We took a student-run accelerator, launched in late 2011, and grew it to the top 5 globally in 2018, recognized in 2019 as the only U.S. university-run accelerator in the top 5. It was a great run. It still is, and I encourage everyone to look at Startup Aggieland if they're considering being entrepreneurial or innovative, and also look at Engineering Inc. Talk to Mays Innovation Research Center. We have quite the ecosystem here. There's a makerspace at the College of Architecture. They also have Architecture Ranch out at Rellis, and our partners at Rellis and the Academic Alliance have a vast array of testing and prototyping resources. So we are really our own ecosystem here in Bryan College Station. I can't talk about what we used to do at Startup Aggieland because that doesn't exist right now in these times. I can't really even talk about Startup Grind too much, but they both launched in 2010. I'm wearing my anniversary t-shirt. Derek Anderson, the CEO of Startup Grind in Redwood City, has done an excellent job of growing that ecosystem to 650 chapters globally. Almost anywhere you go, you can find a Startup Grind, and that's why we launched it in 2014 from Startup Aggieland. It was run by our freshmen in the dorm incubator, which was in itself a pioneering experiment that was a feeder program for the McFerrin Center for Entrepreneurship, which at that time was called the Center for New Ventures and Entrepreneurship. It was still is a multidisciplinary program, just like Startup Aggieland, just like Startup Grind, but Startup Grind is also open to non-students and non-Aggies. And we have quite an ecosystem now. It's 190 members. We've got them across the state and also out of state, because I work with numerous startups through the South by Southwest program and through several other accelerators in our state. I have really enjoyed working for the university. I was there for almost 8 years, starting with Aggie Angel Network, and helped launch that as well. So I'm basically an ecosystem builder when you get right down to it. I like to collaborate. I like to start up things, obviously, and grow them and scale them. And so currently I'm working with 6 local accelerator clients who came to me from Startup Aggieland and from Capital Factory. And so those have done very, very well. We're at the funding stage now, and I really enjoy doing that. But I also really like working with younger students, especially freshmen. I like to get high school students and get them into our ecosystem in their junior or senior year, which we do through our high school camp at the College of Liberal Arts. The College of Education. And that's through Jay Woodward, who runs the youth adventure program there, also called YAP. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about me. I am available online. You can find me on all the social media. You can find Startup Grind BCS on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can find Startup Aggieland. You can find Mays Innovation Research Center, Engineering Inc., the Innovation Partners, the iSchool. We're all out there. So connect with us. We're free. Everybody's free. And so you cannot get these resources in the real world for free, right? So take advantage of it while you can, because we see so many people come back and say, man, I wish I'd realized how expensive it is to go get a patent. At Startup Aggieland and at Startup Grind, we've helped more than 55 clients to get free patents. So this is the time to take advantage of those resources. If you have an invention, if you think you want to work on a team that you might be able to help them invent something, collaborate. If you don't have an idea, get on the team and learn from them. Find a mentor at Startup Aggieland. Take advantage. So now I'm going to turn it over to some of our great Startup Grind leaders. We have Adam Valentin, who was at Startup Aggieland when I met him his senior year. Took him to California with all the students that we have taken from Startup Grind to Silicon Valley, which is something we can't do right now. Our last trip was in February, but that's always free, or mostly free if you're a non-student. We take trips to San Antonio and to Austin, and we go to South by Southwest. We generally populate the ecosystem from Texas A&M University. Unfortunately, we can't do that right now. So like 3 Day Startup Global, we did virtually. They're doing they did 3-day startup at McFerrin Center virtually. So there's still ways to learn. It's not quite as fun as it was when you can do it in person, but you can still figure out ways to connect. And I encourage you to do that. So Adam Valentin was on the leadership team at 3-day startup, and he's standing by to run an official startup grind meetup that we normally would do at Lake Walk, which is right 5 minutes from Texas A&M. So that's in Bryan, and it's a great ecosystem there. You saw all the national leaders coming to visit the tech corridor that Texas A&M has along that way, where the Stella is and where POV Coffee Shop is. So when things get back to normal, look for us there in downtown Bryan. We also do Food Plus City down there. So Adam, take it away, please.
So for those of you who don't know who Matt Harris is, I'm going to read off his bio. Matt Harris is on the investment team at Draper Associates. He was recently hired there in August 2020, I believe. So congratulations on that. He was formerly Senior Vice President at Chambers Energy Capital, where he led due diligence, research on private investment opportunities in the energy sector. Prior to that, Matt worked his way up from analyst to energy team vice president at the Blackstone Group in New York. Matt has a bachelor's degree in business administration and finance from Mays Business School at Texas A&M, and he's a former member of the Titans organization at Mays, and he's based out of Austin. So that's kind of our commonality, Matt, is that I'm also in Austin right now. I'm in Westlake. I guess we can kind of dive right into this. So I think it's always great to start out with some vulnerability, understanding a person and what drives them. So what are you most passionate about, and what wakes you up every single morning?
Good question. Getting right into it. Hey guys,
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to me talk. This is a huge honor. A couple things. I mean, I have a small family, so that's a big part of it. I have 2 daughters that are very fun. Actually, the older one, it's her birthday today. She's turning 4.
Happy birthday.
I would say more generally, I'm very driven by learning and relationships. So any opportunity I have to learn or to form relationships, that's what motivates me. And then more specifically to this conversation, and more specifically and superheroes. I really believe the modern day superhero is the entrepreneur. And when I think about, my skill set and what I'm good at and what I'm bad at this, for this season of life, the best place I fit into the world, my biggest value add is being someone that is just sold out on serving superheroes. And so that's what I really, wake up in the morning for, and spend, 15 hours a day doing, is just trying to, use my strengths and weaknesses, and then really just bringing the Draper brand and all the Draper resources to help entrepreneurs just run wild and be unconstrained and be who they are.
Awesome. That's awesome. Absolutely love that. So what kind of made you choose venture capital over any other stage of investing in this point in your life right now?
Yeah. Usually, since I worked in New York for so long, I got this kind of question a lot from all the visiting Aggies when I worked at Blackstone, and up until now, my answer was I just took the job that I got, kind of thing. But I actually have a real answer now. Probably in my mid-20s when I was in New York, I started to realize that this is the part of the investment world that I wanted to be in. And the reason is a couple of things. One is, venture capital and entrepreneurialism, in my opinion, is the most important thing. It's so important to progress and freedom and equality, and that's not just me saying that. Like, if you look at the stats of, for example, the percentage of the percentage of employment that comes from venture capital companies, or the percentage of revenue that comes from venture capital companies, it's relative to the size of the venture capital industry and its AUM and the broader, capital ecosystem. venture capital's impact on progress and freedom is massively outsized. And so that was what really drew me to the space. And I wasn't, and then so there's this really important service that venture capital fills for superheroes. But then when I think about what my strengths and weaknesses are, one thing I love to do is just encourage people. It's a strength that I have. It's something that I love to do. And when you look at starting a company is truly, I believe, the highest calling that someone can have in their life. I think maybe starting a company or writing a book, in my personal opinion, is the highest calling any of us can have. But if you look at the mental health stats for entrepreneurs, they're actually quite bad. And the reason for that is because starting a company is hell. And so when I thought about, what I thought really mattered in the world, and when I thought about what my strengths and weaknesses were and what I wanted to spend my time doing, which was serving and encouraging these people who are going through something, really hard to make the world a better place. That was why I made, a shift that, to be honest, has knocked me back a good amount financially, because I was a middle upper level person at some pretty prestigious private equity firms that are doing great things and are great people. But I actually felt like this is where I was best used.
Right. So kind of going off of that, I'm interested to know what kind of community or mental health services Draper is giving to their founders. And if they have had it implemented for a while now, are y'all seeing any positive results? Do you have an answer for that?
Yeah. On the mental health side, I think the main thing is the awareness of it. And like Tim Draper, who we can talk about more, like he would answer part of the reasons I wanted to work for Tim, and then I think he hired me, is that we think very similarly about these things. And so he knows that, young entrepreneurs are going through a lot, were actually the words that he used when we first spoke. So I don't think we don't have like mental health services in place, but if can I share my screen? Is that okay with everybody? To show you,
Sure.
The ecosystem that Tim has created. I feel like sharing my screen never goes the way I want it to go, but let's see. Can you guys see this ecosystem? So this is one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. This is the ecosystem that Tim Draper has created for entrepreneurs, and because one of the, there are a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons being an entrepreneur is hard is that it can be quite lonely. Especially for the most disruptive companies, because by their nature, they're non-consensus and they're kind of off in the wilderness for a pretty long amount of time. But if you look at this in terms of the community Tim has created, I think you should think of it as, on the far left, you've got Draper Startup House. That's actually where I office in Austin. There are 9 locations in the world. One in the US is in Austin. That's where the COVID breakout was. If you see me look down at all during the interview, it's because I'm managing, I have to go get tested now, and I'm managing the fallout among all my family about me possibly having it. And so on the far left, you've got Draper Startup House, and that part of the ecosystem, the leftmost part of the ecosystem, is really meant to encourage community among entrepreneurial people. So venture capitalists and entrepreneurs and incubators. Like Draper Startup House is supposed to be a hostel, right? So like if anyone on this call that's interested in entrepreneurship, if you're, backpacking Munich in between your junior and senior year and you like entrepreneurship, you can go stay at the Draper Startup House and meet other people that have the similar interests in sort of building global community. If you go all the way to the far right, where it says funding, that's actually where I sit in this ecosystem, where we have actual, institutional seed funds that back companies and hope they become unicorns.
See. Okay. Is that 1.4 billion on the funding side? Is that how many assets under management y'all have currently?
So 1.4. So the way it works, so one of the things Tim Draper did. So Tim's been doing venture capital since the 80s. he's essentially venture capital royalty. Like I think his dad was one of the original venture capitalists, and he's probably a top 5 or 10 VC in the world. And one thing he's done a lot of fairly innovative things in venture capital. One innovative thing he did was he franchised the model in the 90s. And so the 1.4 billion is all the capital within those franchises. So there are 23, I think that's the numbers being blocked by the screen. There are 23 Draper branded VC funds in the world. That's called the Draper Venture Network. And so within that network, there's something like, $1.5 billion of AUM. But in terms, so, you guys, this is some venture capital education that I'm getting in real time as well. So don't ask me anything too hard. For a VC fund, like an institutional VC fund, like 100-ish million is sort of the low end. And then $1 billion would be like a huge seed stage fund. And you can do the math, right? Like go in Excel and assume that you need to make a 3x, assume 70% of the businesses fail, and just look at, and assume your average investment size. And you'll start to see that, like, holy moly, if we have $1 billion fund, that means that the 30% of our companies that make money need to average, a 40x return or something like that. So it gets pretty difficult to do really early stage stuff with really big funds. So anyway, that's all to say that the fund that I work in, sort of the flagship Draper fund, Draper Associates, is 200 million.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, and you brought up this the idea of finances and like the pay cut that you have. I'm assuming you've taken a pay cut because early stage investing, for the people who don't know, is they operate off of a 2 and 20 model, to where you have a 2% management fee and 20% carried interest. So that 2% management fee, if you have a micro fund that is, $7.5 million to 10 million, you really only have about $150,000 to $300,000 to operate on each year. And your investors are expecting you to invest that money and recycle that type of money into investments. So whenever you're in early stage investing, it's kind of difficult to live because you're investing all of that money. I've heard of countless stories where, and I'm not sure how often you're on Twitter, Matt, but I've seen at least 3 people who have other full-time jobs while they're also managing their micro funds, because it's a hard business. And also what you just mentioned is the power law distribution of investing. Could you kind of break that down a little bit more into layman's terms and explain how you view seed funding? Or that's essentially my question. Yeah.
How I view seed funding. So I guess I'll answer by kind of telling you what it is that we look for and what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Is that fair? So one thing I've learned in my my short time in venture capital is that and I think in life in general, like, don't be scared to be the person at the table that asks the simple question. Like, so for example, the word seed stage has several definitions in venture capital, and it's important to clarify, what exactly that means to the people around the table. And so in the case of Draper Associates, we would define seed stage as team in place, product in place, and some form of traction. And that traction needs to be showing evidence of really fast growth. And so that's what seed stage. That's how we define it. So the way you can think of the life cycle of a company is, as it relates to financing, is pre-seed would be a smart guy and an idea that's upstream of us, and then we're seed, and then Series A, B, C, D, public, or whatever is after us. And so that's how we define seed. We're technology generalists, and we're very global. Draper Associates is I think probably viewed as one of the more, and Tim specifically is probably viewed as one of the more global venture capitalists. So of our $200 million fund, 30% will be international and 70% will be US. And then we're unicorn hunting. Like it's different, a lot different than what I was doing before, where, you know, you've got a team of 10 to 15 people, and the ratio of people to investments is like something between, 3 to 1 to 1 to 1, depending on the fund that you're in. And in this style of investing, we've got 7 people and over 100 live investments, and we're looking for, the way that you set yourself apart in VC is like, you can think of it, you make 10 investments, 5 will be zeros, 3 or 4 will be, 3 to 10x, and then 1 or 2 will be like 20 to 100x. And it's the range, it's how that 1 or 2 does that really determines who is the outperformer. And so we're looking for companies that, I think it's fairly broad. Global tech generalist is obviously very broad. I think the 3 things that I would say that we really get excited about are, when new technology comes into, really big markets that are oligopolistic or monopolistic and costs are high and service is bad. I think that's one we really like to do. And then within that bucket or without that bucket, I think things that have a freedom orientation are things that we really like. Tim is like really all about freedom. And so like his big, and therefore, our big or my big sort of non-consensus views for this fund are around Bitcoin and blockchain. And a lot of that is because of the decentralization and sovereignty and freedom that those things come along with. And then the third big bucket would just be weird stuff. Like Tim loves the weird stuff. Like he, at this stage, there's so little to go on other than the team. So he tells me every fund I talk to, ask them like, have you seen anything really weird recently? Like, you saw a team that you really liked, and like you're not sure that putting a Taco Bell on Mars is the right call, but you really like the team. Like he like loves to talk to those guys.
Yeah, the people who are thinking outside of the box, contrarian.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have one last question for you. So you're essentially running deal flow for Texas, and is that all of Texas? Do you go beyond Texas? And within that region, it could be within the past week or within the past month. What has been the startup that you have gotten most excited about, and why?
Yeah, good question. So my role at Draper is I'm on, like you said, I'm on the investment team. But like my LinkedIn says Chief Texas Scout, and the reason, that's a little bit of marketing. My role is to essentially build out a Texas office, which means great things for Texas. Like basically Tim and team have decided that like Texas should have a lot more on the ground institutional capital. And so I'm I guess like the beachhead there. And so what that means is it's really a great spot for me. I'm really enjoying it because on the one hand, I just get to sit in Tim Draper's inbox and look at all the deals that he gets sent. And then on the other hand, it's my main job is to build a high quality, durable pipeline of seed stage deals in Texas and make sure the best entrepreneurs are getting the capital and resources they need. And that doesn't mean that the company has to be, domiciled in Texas or doing business in Texas, but it does generally mean that like the ideas don't have to be, but I'm supposed to be kind of wrapping my arms around the Texas ecosystem. And, if there's a family office in Houston that's backed a pre-seed company in Canada, then that counts, for example. But obviously Austin is the center of the universe for Texas venture. So it's a lot of just meeting everybody in Texas and telling them that we're here. And it's the one fun thing about this type of investing versus the type I was doing prior, and one of the reasons I wanted to get into it is that it's very collaborative. Like nobody feels super competitive towards the other funds here. Like rarely does a seed stage deal get done by one investor. It's usually a group. So it's pretty fun to come into that environment and everybody's very nice and welcoming, and I think we're all going to work together. Yeah, definitely. That's why I love it too. Okay, so I guess now we have about 5 minutes for a Q&A.
So, Shelly, how are you thinking about doing this? Do you think people should unmute themselves, or should they just ask questions in the chat?
Well, normally I would say ask questions in the chat, but if the students want to unmute themselves and that's okay with Stephen, I say just throw it open like we do normally in class.
Okay, cool. Let's do that.
And you can
I'm good
manage
with
it.
that. Lovely. Okay. All right. So anyone have any questions for Matt?
I actually have one, and I'll just go ahead and voice it. So since you said you used to work in New York doing kind of like this same kind of work, and I know you've probably spent some time in California. So now, having been on like the East Coast, West Coast, and now in Texas, how have the communities kind of differed in that respect within like startups or either like venture capital, or just in general, how is it like different?
Yeah, I probably should get a little more experience in this part of the capital environment to give a great answer to that. But I would say the thing so when I was in New York, I was working for like a massive private equity firm, not working with startups. I would say each ecosystem has sort of its specialties. So I think in New York, you get a lot of fintech. In California, you get a lot of more software techie type stuff. In Texas, you'll probably get more stuff that's closer to the industrial complex. So there are differences in what everybody's kind of the strengths of the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think there's pretty big differences in just the supply and demand for capital in every ecosystem, and that drives a lot about kind of how everybody interacts with each other. So Texas is a massive importer of capital, and all that capital comes from California and New York, basically, and Chicago, maybe Boston. And so to come in so that I think that makes being in those ecosystems on the West Coast and the East Coast a lot less fun because they're not it's a lot more competitive and cutthroat and a lot less collaborative. And versus here, everybody, at this stage, everybody's kind of working together. I've been really pleasantly surprised with how happy everybody, because I was a little nervous at first that, a big sort of brand name VC fund is coming into town, when really I just wanted to be helpful to the ecosystem. And people have been really receptive to just, a new guy coming in and wanting to help and wanting to introduce. And so I would say that the cultures are also quite different. And I would say, the culture in Austin and Texas for early stage stuff seems fantastic.
It's like another layer of Southern hospitality.
Yep.
Thank you. That was a great answer.
Anyone else? It's quiet.
I have a question if I can ask.
Well, if there aren't any questions,
Ooh,
go ahead.
Wait, she had one.
Renee from Renzo Box. Hey, Shelly. Hey, Stephen. How are you?
Great.
My question is, can you talk a little bit about deal flow that you've been seeing either in Texas or beyond from female-led startups?
Sure. And I forgot to answer. I'll answer both of them now. They had asked earlier what deals I was most excited about. Probably the one I'm most excited about is that came from a Texas source, but is Denver-based. Is an app that is neuroscience-based. So they've figured out how to read the details of your heart rate variability and tone to tell what your oxytocin and dopamine levels are doing. Which, if you can tell what someone's oxytocin and dopamine levels are doing in real time, you can basically predict what they're going to do next. So that I think is pretty cool. So for women founders, a couple things. So I've been with the firm 2 months, and of the two deals that are getting close to the finish line, passing back term sheets, one of them is it's in Brooklyn, but it's female led. It's called Lantern. And then in the Draper ecosystem, you've got Jessie Draper, Tim's daughter, who runs Halogen, who is one of the, leaders in financing women VCs or women entrepreneurs. And then in Texas, To be honest, in Texas, I'm so new that I haven't made great inroads in with the actual entrepreneurs yet. I've made a lot of good inroads with the funds and the incubators, and I'm looking for ways into meeting more entrepreneurs. So I haven't. I would say of the entrepreneurs that I've come across in Texas, there haven't been too many women, but it's a pretty small sample set at this point. But the only deal that I've gotten.
Well, that's a good segue, Adam.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Adam. That's a good segue to Renee, because we want to introduce her to the students as one of our startups that we've worked with through South by Southwest. And then we'll come back to Matt at a final Q&A towards the end, because I think students will have had a chance to think of some questions by then.
Sounds good.
Okay, that works for me. Hey there, Renee. How are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing great. I just wish Zoom could solve their latency problem. That'd be great. So yeah, tell us a little bit more about, I want to pronounce this. Well, could you pronounce how, is it Renzoe?
That's right, Renzo box.
Renzo box. Okay, cool. Yeah, could you kind of explain a little bit about what the company is all about, what your role is in it, and anything else that you think will be beneficial?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, you guys. Renzo Box is a hardware and software startup in the beauty industry. The Renzo Box is the best way to combine all of your beloved makeup products into one refillable chic compact. On average, women wear 6 products from 5 different brands, and all of those products come in their own form of packaging, which leads to a lot of clutter, a lot of waste, and a lot of single-use plastic. And with the Renzo box, you can now mix and match and build a palette of the makeup of your choosing. So for example, if you wear a foundation from Bare Minerals and a blush from NARS and eyeshadow from Urban Decay, they can all live within one refillable compact. The software side is basically a digital curation tool. So as you're ready to reorder and to customize and build your palette, you can almost think of it as like the way the App Store pairs with your iPhone. We have a digital curation tool that pairs with your Renzo box.
That's kind of awesome. I think
Thanks.
that sounds awesome. So how, when did y'all launch?
Yeah, so we launched a customer pilot at the end of 2018. And we actually produced 500 units of the Renzo box itself. And the goal for that customer pilot was really to prove the demand side, prove that this was a customer pain point, that customers were interested in the product, and that they would first order the Renzo box, and then also to prove out the business model, which is the razor and blade model, which doesn't really exist for color cosmetics right now, which is interesting because it's a product that women are constantly using and reusing. So yeah, we sat on those customers for a year, and we gained some really awesome metrics in terms of reorder behavior, and proved out that side. So the next side is to prove out the supply side with the brands, because the goal is that we work with the different brands. They provide their formulation in bulk, and then we press them into these modular units, like the refill units. So it actually works very similar to the way Keurig does, you know, the Keurig coffee system. How you can like buy those K-cups in like Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts or Gavelia or like all these different brands. The same sort of idea, but with the refill system for your makeup. So it's kind of, you can think about, we're modernizing your makeup bag. Ladies who are in the audience, no more of this like rummaging through this crazy makeup bag and like, you know, having a palette of 12 shades but you're only using 2 of them. You don't need to do any of that stuff anymore.
Interesting. How much does it cost?
You want to buy one for your significant other, don't you? You've got like a mom or an aunt.
No, I'm just fascinated because I know like my little cousins or all the girls that are in my family, they're dropping a good amount of money on all of this makeup that they're buying. And one of them is a beauty queen, so obviously she's, you know, just unloading dollars onto the makeup industry. So So I'm fascinated to understand, is it a good price point to where she could just buy it and save us a couple $100s a month?
Yeah, so the box itself, it retails for $149. I should just show, I'm going to show you guys one. Would you guys like to see?
Go for it.
Give me just a second.
Go for it.
Okay, product demo time. I'm going to show you mine. All right, so this is the Renzo box. So I just pulled it out of my little clutch purse. So it's quite compact. I'll show you. This is it next to my mouse, so you can see it's pretty small in scale. Okay, it's got 2 layers here. It opens up. This one's mine. That's why it's used. So these are the modular units. This slides out,
Okay.
and these they pop in and out like Lego pieces. Anyway, so you can mix and match. Like you can see, there's like I could replace those 2 smalls with a medium. I could replace the large with 2 mediums. The non-palette-based products fit in this compartment below. So like your lipstick, mascara, eyeliner, all that kind of stuff. Your liquids fit in here. And then this is the magic trick. This opens up and there are your brushes. So you asked about the price. The Renzo box, it comes with the brush set, and it comes with 3 like free makeup pods, and it retails for $149.
Okay. I don't know if that's is that a good price? Like, are there any girls in the audience who are spending more than $150 a month on makeup? I don't know. Y'all can throw it in the chat if y'all want. It'll be much easier. That'd be funny to see how much people are spending on their makeup. Okay, cool. So, hey, Shelly, how are we doing on time?
Let's shift. We'll save Renee for the Q&A at the end. We need to give a few minutes to Eduardo Martinez. He's with Food Plus City and from the College of Agriculture with a minoring in entrepreneurship at Mays Business School. So I'd like to give him a moment to talk if he's still online, and then also give a shout out to David Smith, one of our mentors who's traveled with us to Silicon Valley and San Antonio and everywhere else.
Sorry,
Okay.
Also, Brian
You guys take it
Kerstein,
away.
who grew up with us.
Hey, Brian.
All right, Eduardo. Who's there? Brian, who wants to speak first? It looks like Edmund. Hey, Edmund, I didn't know you were on the call.
Hey, Shelly, how you doing? I'm okay. I'm not
Good,
muted
how
now.
are you? This is Edmund Macaluso.
Hi,
Yes.
everybody.
Welcome, Edmund, from Silicon Valley.
I run the Aggie Entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley. So we have about 300 people or so. We have events. I know Omar, several of you have come out to Silicon Valley. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be able to do that this year, but the last 2 or 3 years, it's been great having people come out. We have a lot of Aggies out in the Valley running companies. We talked about having women running startups. We have numerous women in our group who are running startup companies in the Valley, and so it's been great. It's been the networking for people. It's really all over the U.S., but we have a lot. But it's the networking in Silicon Valley is great for the Aggies. I've had people come up and say, "Oh, this is awesome having our own group with lots of people they can relate to as far as doing startups and having Texas roots and so on." And so it's really helpful. And so that's one of the things I've been doing. So thanks, Shelly.
Edmund and the Silicon Valley Aggies, hey there. You guys co-sponsored our tailgate last fall, and that was supposed to happen again this weekend for the Florida game. So I'm a week behind. Anyway, it was supposed to happen on the 10th at the Association of Former Students. Last year, we had 225 entrepreneurs and VCs attend from both coasts and from around the state of Texas. So We decided not to go virtual with it. It just isn't quite the same. But I appreciate
Right.
your sponsorship, and we have our date reserved for next year.
That'll be great. I mean, the networking is really good. I mean, during this time of COVID, you know, startups are really having to plan to deal with it. You know, all right, to stretch out their runways, to find ways you can make it work. So, I mean, there's a lot of businesses that are thriving online right now. You look at the growth in esports and live streaming, and areas like that. It's just incredible. At the same time, you see that, you know, for the real sport, for live sports, like ESPN is talking about laying off a bunch of people. So it's just a dichotomy of growth between streaming and live sports right now. So it's really difficult for a lot of people. I think we got to remain really conscious of people who are struggling right now in the area. And if you've got a startup going, you really got to think about how I can make this survive. You really got to think about stretching out your runway. And, you know, if you happen to be fortunate enough to be in an area where you are experiencing some growth, then right now is the time to take advantage of it, because, you know, you'll probably, coming out of the pandemic, which we don't know when that's going to be, but coming out of it, you'll be in a good position. And if you are impacted, you really got to think about maybe pivoting, or what I can do right now to survive another, I would say probably 8 months, you know, because, you know, no matter what happens, people are not going to be comfortable doing a lot of things for a while. So that would be kind of my 2 cents right now, is really put a lot of thought into that, into whatever business you're thinking about doing, and how you're going to make it work in the context of the current situation. Build your network, and, you know, if you're in an area that's not anywhere in Texas, where you have a lot of Aggies, there are several good groups and Aggie groups, of course, all over Texas that you can tap into. And Shelly knows a whole bunch of them. And so she's a great resource to contact for that. But if you're elsewhere in the country, in New York or California or other places around the country, join our group. And we have a lot of people all over the place who are significant connections in those areas. I think of Andy up in New York. And so there's just a lot of people.
Great segue, Edmund. That's a great segue, talking about working remotely, working with other groups. We have recently inherited Food Plus City, global incubator from Austin that is moving to Aggie Land. It was founded by Robin Metcalf. Bob Metcalf is on the board, and they have agreed to transfer the assets to Texas A&M University. We have our student representative from that group. He has put together a multicultural, interdisciplinary team. His name is Eduardo Martinez, and I would like to give him a few minutes to talk about what he's working on and how students can become involved if they're foodies or have a beverage in mind that they want to launch. This is an opportunity to leverage some pretty good resources. Eduardo, are you still online?
I think he just dropped off, but he should be back momentarily.
Oh dear. Okay, great. All right, let's shift to real quickly David Smith, if he's still online, one of our mentors who's traveled with us and worked with some of our startups, and we've been working together for a while now.
Hey, Shelly and everybody, thanks for all you're doing. You know, I'd just like to say that, you know, we all know this, but it's sure helpful for me to remember that ideas are incredibly powerful. And all this networking and beginning to share ideas together helps us and helps me too. But the hope is it helps us to all form these ideas that ultimately that end up being a unique idea, an idea that has a monopoly in a particular space. Maybe it's just a local space, maybe it's a regional or statewide or whatever, but a way that you can create value. And there's a lot of really, really smart people out there. And I frankly think there's a whole bunch of really, really smart people on this call. And so what we can do is if we can work together without fear of oh, somebody may take my idea. But the idea is that you take portions and parts of it and you share it with people and you let that build your knowledge and your wisdom. And I'm really confident that in time you will come up with, or a lot of us will come up with something that's super unique, that's great for the market and just a great solution overall. Anyway, it's just been a gas to work with Shelly for the last, I don't know, nearly 4 years now. She's just done tremendous amounts of good things and have brought people along, and now I'm getting to work with people like Omar and Adam and other people, and it's just been a real blessing. So anyway, that's all I really need to say, but it's great to be here, and kudos to everybody.
Thank you, David. It looks like we've lost Eduardo, so watch for Food Plus City and look out for Eduardo Martinez and his team. They'll be talking at some different events virtually, and working with Borlaug Institute, working with the Metcalfs, working with some of their sponsors that come over from, no, I thought that was him. Lastly, I think we still have on the call Brian Kerstein. Brian started with us as a freshman. He went to Sweden with me last year about this time and attended a talk that I gave at the Karolinska Institute. We went and toured, I think, about 15 accelerators, incubators, communal living spaces, co-working spaces. They have some of the best startup culture throughout the country. And so I'd like Brian to talk a little bit about what we saw there and his experience with us at the Dorm Incubator, the accelerator, and then Startup Grind.
Yeah, thanks, Shelly. First off, thank you for putting this event together. It's been great. And, I think this is just a testament of the different opportunities that kind of opened up through the entrepreneurial community that's there in College Station. It's been really exciting to get to travel with Shelly now multiple times. We've gone to California, we've gone to to Sweden, and it's amazing just being very transparent. It's so easy to get caught in your community here in College Station, and kind of taking yourself out of your environment and going to see these different cities, these different countries even, and just the way they live, the way they operate. It's pretty amazing and eye-opening to see that kind of come into fruition. And so it was a great experience, and we got to meet a lot of great people and see how, even the venture capital model, even the accelerator model is different in these other countries. Even seeing Shelly and I got to meet with one of the top accelerators there, and they do all of this from a nonprofit standpoint, and seeing how that model works for them, and how they've just created a vibrant community there. And and they do it very differently from how at least with the venture capital that I've done in kind of this for-profit raising a fund model. And so it's super exciting, and to be able to be a part of these kind of events, but also hopefully we'll be able to do some more traveling in the future as well. And thanks so much, Shelly. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian. Thank you, Adam, for doing such a great job. Matt, do you have any final words, or are there any questions from anybody?
Shelly, go ahead, Matt.
Oh, you go ahead. I was just coming on in case there were some questions.
I'm putting in a book that I recommend for people related to what Brian was just talking about in terms of getting around. It's called Exponential Organizations. It's a little bit older book. I think it's 2014, but it's still very, very relevant right now in terms of the global economy, in terms of when you're doing things, try to do things that have good tailwinds, that have high leverage. And you can do that from Texas. I mean, a big advantage in Texas, and we see this in Silicon Valley with people all over the world. There's a lot of startups because people are easily globally connected these days. that can start up anywhere, and the costs are a lot lower than Silicon Valley and a lot of other places. So if you can get some traction with you have more runway that way. If you can get traction in that area and start growing in that area, then maybe you will set up some operations in Silicon Valley or other places like that. But you have an advantage in that you have that runway. So some of the tailwinds are cloud. Cloud is incredible right now because 15 years ago it would cost you $1 million to set up a global network and servers and compute power. And with cloud these days, for a few $100,000, which is mostly people or a few people, you can have global access around the world, and you can scale depending on how much use you have. And between cloud, mobile, AI, it's important to have those types of technologies, not just look at a market in Texas or something like that. It's important to connect with customers through those technologies so that they're highly interactive with what you're doing, and stuff like that. So those,
Thanks, Edmund.
I think Exponential Organizations really outlines that very well. So anyway.
Thank you very much, Edmund, and thank you, Adam. Thank you, Matt Harris. Thank you, Renee Graham. I'm sorry we missed Eduardo Martinez. Maybe he'll join us for the 5 p.m. class with Dr. Rodney Hill. So that Zoom link is on our LinkedIn post, and you can connect with that class. If you missed some of these speakers, came in late, join us then too. It's open to the public. Thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Caffey. Thank you, Stephen. I really, really appreciate the opportunity to do this every semester. I look forward to it.
Thank you, Shelly, and thanks to all our guests. It's an extraordinary honor and pleasure, and it's so inspiring to see that we have such a community, such an ecosystem of mutually supportive, collaborative, inspirational people. And so one of the things I'd like to sort of remind my students, first of all, thank you for your time and attention. But Edmund and Brian and Matt and Renee and David and everyone else, Adam, everybody else who contributed today, they all represent the best of what it means to be creative, innovative, entrepreneurial, and show leadership in all those areas. And so, one of the things that we say at Texas A&M is fearless on every front. So I would encourage the students in this class, those of you who are serious about not only participating in one of those 70% of the jobs that don't even currently exist yet in the 21st century, but being one of the people who generates those jobs, who creates those opportunities for Aggies and for other people. And so be fearlessly creative, be fearlessly innovative, be fearlessly entrepreneurial, and show fearless leadership. And as we learned today, in terms of, this event could have been canceled, right? Because somebody tested positive for COVID, but what did Shelly do? She pivoted. And so that sense of agility, adaptability to the local conditions, to the immediate conditions, and not ever seeing an obstacle as an obstacle, but always as an opportunity, right? And as Edmund mentioned, with COVID-19 especially, everything is ground to a halt. There could be huge long-term implications for the U.S. economy and for the global economy. What does that mean? That we should all just sort of cross our arms and shut our eyes and wait for it to be over? No, it means that we should figure out every opportunity that we can to actively accelerate and catalyze the recovery from that impact. And entrepreneurship is the way that that's going to happen, right? So the traditional model of businesses, many of them have suffered irreparable damage, but it's the agility, the adaptability, and the fearless creativity of entrepreneurial initiatives that are going to make the difference. And so there are people on this call who are currently enrolled in Environmental Design 101 for this fall semester, who will be part of that catalysis, part of that recovery. So don't ever doubt yourself. Don't ever fear that an idea that you might have might fall on deaf ears, because there's going to be somebody who's going to be interested. And if you bring that Aggie passion to it, it's going to be successful, right? And then finally, one of the most important things that we can think about as we move forward in this new economy, these new conditions, this post-pandemic world, and let's face it, I'll be glad when 2020 is over. I don't know about you guys. But one of the most important things that came out of the discussion for me today, especially with what David was talking about and Matt, is that competition in a capitalist society is a proven model of success. What has been less well tested is the collaborative model. And so really take the advice that you got today to heart, because thinking about sharing your ideas with somebody else who brings that different perspective, and we've talked about the inestimable importance of diversity in terms of every measure of diversity in generating the most creative ideas. And so talk about your ideas, share your ideas, and most importantly, surround yourself with people who have your best interests in heart and who are always going to provide what Edmund talked about as the tailwind. So thank you again to all our guests. Thank you to all the students in this class. We are so blessed to have people who are willing to come and share their experience and their expertise with us. And most importantly, we're all blessed to be Aggies, right? All right. Thank you all so much. I appreciate it.